I mean, if he's like 17, middle of the pack, does he have the potential to get better? And I think he does. I mean, you look at the guy, he's 23 years old. Even Joe Burrow, he's a similar, in his second year as well, but he's 25. I mean, so I think the age makes a difference. I think there's definitely potential for him to get better. I mean, everybody knows what his weakness is. I mean, it's his accuracy, it's his.
Glad to be back here on Birds 365. We took a little Super Bowl respite a couple days before, a couple days after, but we're back straight through for the Combine, the NFL Draft, all the way up till the preseason. Yeah, we plan on being here for you basically day in and day out, and we plan on bringing you good guests who add to the Mac and Mac mix, and for that, we get our buddy Martin Frank up here. Once again, is doing it in the dark. What the heck's wrong with you? Where's the light, Frank?
I don't know. I guess no sun up here in PA.
Yeah, most people are at the mercy of the weather, Jody. So yeah, we can't. I have the ring lights, yeah, which are good, by the way. Not good for illuminating me. It would be good for illuminating Martin Frank, but Martin, you probably heard us going back and forth about the Super Bowl. So that would be my first question to you. What did you learn about the Super Bowl in relation to the Philadelphia Eagles? Or did you learn anything about those two teams, how they were built? Because a lot of people brought up the Bengals building through the draft, the Rams going all in, so to speak, although people kind of missed the fact that Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald were both draft picks. It wasn't like the Rams didn't have a lot of homegrown players. So what did you learn from that Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, like you were saying, one of the things that people say, oh, the Eagles should trade for a quarterback like Russell Wilson or somebody because, the Rams did with Matthew Stafford. And here they are winning the Super Bowl. But I think it's a little bit different than that because when you look at the team around Stafford, I mean, he has all these great wide receivers. I know Robert Woods obviously didn't play and Odell Beckham Jr. got hurt, but I mean, they were loaded at wide receiver and they also had, Higbee at tight end and stuff. I mean, I know he didn't play either, but, he had a much better team around him. So, and the Eagles aren't there yet. I mean, you look at their receiving core, and they only have really Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, who they can rely on. I mean, Quez Watkins did some good things, but he's not quite at that level. I mean, they need more playmakers, at either wide receiver for someone for Jalen Hurts to throw to. So I don't think that's the answer because if you go and pick up a guy like Russell Wilson, then, that's pretty much like a fifth of your salary cap right there. And you can't add the weapons that he would need, in order to be at a level like Stafford or Joe Burrow even. Because, I mean, you look at the weapons that Joe Burrow has, it's the same type of thing. I mean, he's got T. Higgins, he's got Jamar Chase, a bunch of guys that he can throw to. And you saw how that took him all the way to the Super Bowl. I mean, I guess the difference between the Eagles and those two teams is, those guys have more weapons, and it's not necessarily the quarterback just yet. I mean, if you believe the jury is still out on Jalen Hurts and maybe he deserves another chance in 2022, well, you get him like better receivers. You get him more receivers and everything.
Yeah.
And,
what hurts, Martin? I think Cooper Kupp was a third-round pick in 2017. So you think about it, that was the Sidney Jones draft and
Douglas.
And obviously T. Higgins, the Eagles could have had T. Higgins as well. So you start playing into that game and maybe you would have receivers and maybe then you could turn into, but you can play that game with every NFL team. It's not necessarily fair because I think Cooper Kupp was the 69th pick in the draft. So, that means there's 68 picks before him where people said, I don't want Cooper Kupp. And it's tough to play that game, but it is interesting. I think from my perspective, the Rams and Bengals proved there's a lot of ways to win. You can go about things a lot of different ways. And the Eagles aren't that far off, because if you make a couple good decisions, you can be right in the mix. Is that too optimistic, which I'm not often described as?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you look at you mentioned the draft and everything like that. I mean, a lot of both of those teams, like, they got their best players that way. You mentioned the wide receivers for the Bengals. You mentioned Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp. But I mean, they also made good draft choices like later in the draft too. I mean, you look at the Rams, for example, their starting inside linebacker was Troy Reader from Delaware.
Yeah.
And he wasn't drafted at all. Their other guy was a third round pick, Ernest Jones. So they got guys, even through the secondary, and it's the same thing with the Bengals. Like, they did build through the draft, but they also spent money. I mean, they got Trey Hendrickson. I think they paid like $60 million for him. I mean, they splurged when they had to, and that it kind of shows that if you draft smartly, if you sign the right free agents, even if you make a few trades here and there, you can become a Super Bowl team. And that's how it happened. I mean, you look at the 2020 season, the Bengals had the same record as the Eagles, 4-11-1. Now, the Eagles obviously, improved and made the playoffs, going 9-8, but the Bengals took another step and went to the Super Bowl because, they had a little bit more talent around them. They had the quarterback in place, and they made some smart moves. And the Eagles can do that too. It just shows, like you said, that teams are, you might not be as far away as you think. I mean, if the Eagles do this right over the offseason, they have the 3 first-round picks. They're going to have some money to spend. I think they're like 20 some odd million under the cap right now, and you can easily, double that basically by making a few adjustments here and there. You got money to add 2 impact players, and the Eagles definitely need to do that during the offseason. If they play their cards right, this could be them next year.
So let me ask you the first question that needs to be asked about the Eagles offseason, one of which we're going to get an answer on. I don't know. Maybe Martin Frank knows. When is Jason Kelce going to decide if he's going to come back and play for the Eagles in 2022?
I think it'll be soon. I mean, he's not gonna like handcuff the Eagles offseason plans. I mean, they have to know by the time the new league year starts, like in mid-March, whether he's going to be back or not, and make the necessary adjustments with the salary and, for the salary cap and everything. I mean, I think it's going to be within the next couple of weeks. The Eagles have to have their plans in place, and Kelce's a big part of that, obviously. I mean, if he's back, I'm assuming that he will be. If he's back, I mean, he's one of the best centers in the NFL, and you can, adjust accordingly. But if if the Eagles are finding out that he's going to retire, well, then they have to make certain plans. Like, they have to figure out who's going to play center. Are they going to move Landon Dickerson to center? Are they going to have Isaac Seumalo play center? Are they going to have to go out and get somebody, and then that's going to affect the depth throughout the whole offensive line. So I think Kelce's he's going to let them know in the next few weeks or so. If I remember correctly, during the past off.
Oh, we got a frozen.
Shortly thereafter, what he's going to do. So, I think it'll be the same thing this year.
All right, Martin, you mentioned quarterback a little bit, talking about Russell Wilson. I think, we have to talk about that. I think Greg Rosenthal from NFL Media, NFL.com, came out today, and he graded basically every quarterback that played somewhat meaningful stats. So it's one of those power lists. But I thought it was pretty good because he had Jalen Hurts at 17, which I thought was fair. And I think it shows that he was better than people thought, but he's certainly not elite. And I think he had Gardner Minshew at 37, which I think was fair. I think he's, essentially, if you think about it, there's 32 teams. So that means he's a top 5 backup, which I agree with. Mm-hmm. The second part is exactly what you want. The first part, though, you're kind of and you're an ex-NBA guy, still do some NBA stuff, kind of in that purgatory. But, you're pretty good. You're better than a lot of teams, but you're probably not good enough to win where you want to win. where you want to go. Obviously, he's already proven he's good enough to take him to the playoffs. So if you're Howie Roseman, I want you to put on your Howie Roseman cap. How do you approach it? Now, you said with Russell, it's too much money, but you also have to evaluate the Kenny Pickett's of the world, the Matt Corrals, the Malik Willises. Do you sit and look at Jalen Hurts and say, all right, he's pretty good now. We can give him another year. We can continue to move on. But do you have in the back of your head, we have to get better at this position at some point? How do you approach the offseason from the quarterback perspective?
Yeah, I would approach it from the fact that, if he's like 17, middle of the pack, does he have the potential to get better? And I think he does. I mean, you look at the guy, he's 23 years old. Even Joe Burrow, he's a similar, in his second year as well, but he's 25. I mean, so I think the age makes a difference. I think there's definitely potential for him to get better. I mean, everybody knows what his weakness is. I mean, it's his accuracy, it's his, play from the pocket. All that stuff can be improved, and it will be improved. I mean, it has to be if the Eagles are going to go far in the playoffs. I mean, he's got to be somewhere in that top 10 to 12 range. So can he improve like 5 spots, to be in that range? And I think he can. I think the Eagles feel that he can. And then if we find out at the end of 2022 that he can't, then, you find another quarterback. You still have all those resources in which to get them. It's always possible. So, yeah, I think they feel that Jalen Hurts, there's still a ceiling that he has not come close to reaching yet. And that's kind of like the offseason. One of the offseason goals is to make Jalen Hurts into a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the NFL. And if they can do that, plus add the weapons that they need, both on offense and defense, you're talking about a team that can make a decent run for the Super Bowl next year.
Martin, JM brought up the quarterback power ratings today on NFL.com. I'm going to stick with power ratings, but overall with teams. Several different major media outlets came out with power ratings, and I don't begrudge. Everybody does it. We'll do it here on Birds 365. I guarantee you it. It's way too early. It doesn't really mean much of anything, but it's a fun exercise, so we have fun with it. Unless, of course, someone disrespects you. And ESPN has the Eagles at number 19 of the teams in the National Football League. They made the playoffs, which means they're in the top 14 as per what transpired on the field. Did the Eagles have any free agents? Would you go, whoa, they better get him retired. They can't afford to let him walk away. What a drop-off there'd be if that person walked away from him. Did they have any free agents like that? Oh my God, the team could fall down around them if they don't get that guy back? Am I missing something, Martin Frank?
No, I'm surprised at that as well. I mean, you look at their most prominent free agents, they're the 3 defensive backs probably, and Steve Nelson, Rodney McLeod and Anthony Harris. And if they lose one of those guys, is that the end of the world? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, none of those guys were great. They'd still have Darius Slay. They got to add stuff on the defensive line. I mean, you got Brandon Graham coming back. You're probably going to lose Derek Barnett, and I think they want to lose Derek
Barnett.
God,
we can't lose Derek Barnett. The team will fall apart if they lose Derek. Derek, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Exactly. And you can replace him in the draft, which I'm guessing the Eagles will make that a pretty big priority to do so. So, I mean, you don't lose anything there. And your defensive line gets better because you got Hargrave coming off a Pro Bowl season. He's still in his prime. You got Brandon Graham coming back. He missed pretty much the whole season. You look at their offensive line. I mean, Brandon Brooks retired, but they played like the last 2 seasons pretty much without him anyway, except for 2 games. I mean, they got Landon Dickerson, who's going to be a star, whether he plays guard or center. You got Mailata, who probably should have made the Pro Bowl. You got Lane Johnson, who should have made the Pro Bowl. Jason Kelce's still at the top of his game. I mean, unless he's retiring, which, I don't get the impression that he is. I mean, the offensive line is still going to be one of the best in the NFL. Hurts could get better. He's not going to get worse. And if he does get worse, you got Gardner Minshew. So, I don't see any big drop off there at quarterback. Miles Sanders, you'd like to think would be healthy for an entire season, maybe not. But I mean, you still have guys behind him. I mean, Gainwell, Boston Scott's a free agent. Jordan Howard's a free agent, so maybe those two guys aren't coming back. But there is still, you can still get a running back in the draft. I mean, they got plenty of picks, so they could use like a third or fourth round pick on a running back, maybe even a fifth round pick, get somebody good. The receivers are all back. You're not losing anyone there. I mean, maybe.
Oh, God
Want to
forbid
lose a
you
couple
don't lose
guys,
anyone there. Yeah.
but it won't be because
Yeah.
it's going to make you any worse. So yeah, I don't see how they could have gotten worse based on ESPN's power rankings.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of them where they're kind of like in the middle of the pack, which is probably okay at this point. I mean, the offseason hasn't really started, so you don't know what they're adding or not. But
yeah,
I think
I'm going to say this, Martin. Day one, I'm considering this day one of season 2 of Birds 365. So I'm going to upset people. One of the reasons the Eagles don't have any free agents that you care that they would lose is because Howie extended everybody they cared about. So you got to give him credit for that. Yep. Josh Sweat and Dallas Goedert and Avonte Maddox, Jake Elliott. Who else am I missing? There was a fifth.
TJ Edwards.
Jordan Mailata, TJ Edwards as well. So 6. So TJ would have been restricted. So a little bit less, but still good player as well. So you're right, Jody. One guy you brought up though, I want to talk about is Miles Sanders, because that's an interesting conversation for a number of reasons. It's a good player, but he's not as good as people thought he would be, and he plays a position where the Eagles don't value and the rest of the NFL doesn't value that much. And when you get to your second contract, people don't like to pay big money for running backs, and it usually doesn't work out that well when they do. How difficult of a decision do the Eagles have with Miles Sanders? And if they don't extend him, and I don't expect that they will, he'll have to play out his rookie contract. And is he going to be happy? Is that a situation we need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, this is a big year for Miles Sanders, and I agree. I don't think the Eagles, let's say Miles Sanders plays all 17 games, rushes for like 1,300 yards, has a great year. Are they going to give him a big contract? Well, they're definitely not going to extend him unless it's like some team-friendly type of deal. But then after that, I mean, I can't see them shelling out like $8 to $10 million a year for Miles Sanders when, you look at the running back position in general. I mean, it's like a short 3.5-year shelf life. And you can get somebody much cheaper in the draft. And the Eagles, I think, have always kind of approached it that way. I mean, it would be hard for them to spend huge on Miles Sanders. So this could be his last year. I mean, and he's played 12 games each of the last 2 years. I mean, he's always had some kind of injury. Each of the last 2 years has kind of cut short his season. I don't think they're willing to spend big on that position, and they haven't had a history of doing so. I mean, it's kind of like how they value linebacker, basically, whether right or wrong. I mean, teams aren't built anymore behind, a running back and everything like that. I mean, their money goes to wide receiver, goes to the defensive line, quarterback. Obviously, at some point, Jalen Hurts is going to, he's a year behind Miles Sanders as far as the second contract. And, maybe you have to make a decision like, which guy are you keeping in that regard. But yeah, Miles Sanders, this is going to be a big year for him. I mean, I think more so from the fact that if he's going to get paid, it's going to be by somebody else. I don't see him being an Eagle beyond 2022 unless he's willing to take like a more team-friendly type of deal, maybe a 2-year prove-it type of thing. But yeah.
Here's where I think both of you guys are overstating things. Is he going to get Christian McCaffrey's contract on the open market? No chance, no shot. Is he going to get paid like Dalvin Cook did at $12 million a year? Ain't happening. He's going to get paid like a guy like, Naheem Hines got his second contract. And
Jody, that means he's not going to have a big year. Martin had him if he has a 1,300 yard year.
Nobody's paying him. Nobody's giving him $12
You
million
think
per
he's
year.
getting
No
Nyheim
one.
Hines
Zero.
money?
1,300 yards. What do you want to give him? 12 touchdowns? Somewhere thereabouts? No one in the league is paying him that kind of money. The league just doesn't pay
Well,
him.
I think there's a
they
difference.
finally come to the realization
there's an
that if you give a running back
in-between.
more than $10 million a year, it's a mistake.
There's an in-between Dalvin Cook and Nyheim Hines is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think the Eagles would be comfortable with the in-between either, Martin, even coming off that type of year.
Well, what do
which,
you
by
think?
the way, I don't even think he's having that type of year.
I'll ask both you guys to give me the number. Give him Martin's numbers for this upcoming season. The numbers that Martin just quoted. How many million he's going to get on the open market? And I'm talking average per salary, because you
average
move a contract around and get guaranteed, whatever. But
at
average
Martin's
per
numbers,
year, what do you think he's going to get?
I'm going to go 9 at Martin's numbers. But I don't think he's going to get Martin's numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something that he hasn't done at all in his career. I mean, that would take like a perfect season on his part. But
that would be a big year. That's what I mean.
But I mean, like, I'm saying, like, if he wanted to stay with the Eagles, maybe like a 2 or 3 year deal, $5 or $6 million a year. Will he get more than that on the open market? I think he will. Personally, I don't think he's going to get $10 million a year, but someone might offer him like 3 years, $24 million. Take a chance that he stays healthy. I mean, that could be possible. I don't know. I know
the Eagles fans would give it to him. They think he's a superstar.
Yeah, I can't see the Eagles giving him that kind of money, but I mean, I think somebody will. And if it's a case of like the Eagles offering like $5 or $6 million a year compared to like 8 or 9 for someone else, I think he would go.
Well, let me say that then, Martin. Do the Eagles even want to pay a running back $5 or $6 million a year? I question even that.
But I'm saying, like, if he has like 1,300 yards rushing this coming year, they might say, oh yeah, we got to do that, at least offer that. But maybe somebody, I would think somebody else is going to offer him more, in which case he's not going to stay here anyway.
Yeah, I think both you guys' numbers are high. I think the league has, in general, decided we're not paying any running back, no matter how good they are, that kind of money. And I think we'll see that during this offseason. I don't think anybody is going to get paid this offseason, and then the year after, I think it'll be hammered home even more that running backs just aren't getting $10 million a year. And Miles Sanders isn't going to be in that neighborhood to begin with anyway. So if it's not 10, it's down to 7, and the Eagles will offer 6. Before you know it, you got a deal.
Maybe. I mean, that could be the case. Maybe he says, all right, fine, I'll eat the $1 million difference and I'll stay with the team that I know. But then again, I mean, there are teams that have a lot of salary cap space. You look at our old friend Doug Pederson down in Jacksonville. I mean, they got money to burn. Doug knows Miles Sanders. He drafted him. Be a nice compliment for Trevor Lawrence if they want to take that next step pretty quickly in a year or so. It's possible. There's always somebody who's going to throw some money at somebody.
Speaking of Doug, I want to get both of you guys, because John and I didn't discuss it before we punch you up, Martin. A couple additions to his staff since he's been hired. Press Taylor is his offensive coordinator. Who could have seen that one coming? Yeah. How do you think Doug's good? He's only done a couple hires. He's still got more guys to fill out his staff. How do you guys think that Doug has done so far putting together his staff? Because we know that was part of the reason why Doug's no longer here.
I was told he didn't know anyone, so I'm astonished that he could put together an NFL coaching staff. He doesn't know anyone, Jody. How did he do it? I don't. I've always said this, and you've heard me say it. Martin's probably heard me say it. That was the dumbest narrative in the history of mankind. The guy played 13 stinking seasons in the NFL. And then you have this mentality, oh, he only coached with Andy Reid. So my thought, Martin, was always, what should he do? Go with a crappy coach so he could get fired to meet more other crappy assistant coaches in other parts of the league? I never understood that. And all of a sudden, I think that, look, he wasn't their first choice. Everybody kind of knows what happened down there. But I think he landed in a great spot. Now, you have to see the organization is not good. Sorry, Tony Khan, closed circuit to Tony. It's not a good organization. But you got Trevor Lawrence, man. That guy's got a ton of ability at the quarterback position. And if you're a head coach in this league, the first thing I want to do is tie myself to a big time quarterback. I think Doug is in a really good position.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the better openings. I mean, coaching openings during the offseason. I mean, you look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence, and Doug is a former NFL quarterback. I mean, we all know what he did when he got here. He built his staff around developing Carson Wentz. That was the thing. He's got the number one pick in the draft last year in Trevor Lawrence, and obviously had a bad year under Urban Meyer, which makes it seem like how could anybody mess it up? If Doug gets the right staff around him, gets some players around him, and if Trevor Lawrence is as good as he's supposed to be, this is an ideal situation for Doug. I mean, obviously it goes south pretty quickly too, like it did with Urban Meyer, but Doug's not that kind of guy anyway. I think a couple of years we'll find out if Doug's a really good NFL coach or not, because he's got to develop Trevor Lawrence, and that's what he should make his whole coaching priority around is finding the pieces, finding the coaches who can make Trevor Lawrence into one of the top NFL quarterbacks. And I would want that. If I was going for a coaching job, I would love that opportunity. You got your quarterback in place. He's a number one pick. He's supposed to be a franchise guy. And if he's, you sink or swim with him. And that's kind of like always been like the head coach quarterback, relationship. You either succeed and become a great coach with him, or you fail and you're out of the job in 2 years anyway.
All right. Speaking of going south and giving Howie Roseman credit, something Martin said going south, John said giving Howie Roseman credit. Carson Wentz has already worn out his welcome in Indianapolis in 10 months. What the hell happened there? And Chris Mortensen is not one of those hot take guys who gets his hand on a piece of information and overstates it to run with it to get that many more people's attention. No, Mort is salt of the earth NFL reporter who only reports what he hears and what he knows and what his sources give him. So this didn't just come out of left field or someone with an agenda. It's Chris Mortensen we're talking about here. He's the one who first broke who the Colts could be moving on from Carson Wentz. What the hell happened in Indianapolis, Martin?
You know what? And maybe people are vilifying me for this, but I think a lot of it had to do with the vaccine. I think it just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Teammates, it was a selfish act on his part. I mean, he risked pretty much the entire season, and then he ended up getting it like in December. The NFL obviously changed the rules, so he didn't have to miss a game, but he didn't practice that whole week going into the biggest game of the year for them, and they lost, and then they lost the next week to Jacksonville. And
that's a good point, Martin.
I think by then, like, everybody was just fed up with it. I mean, it was selfish. It was, he didn't put the team first, and whatever your beliefs are, one way or the other. I mean, you play on a team with 53 other guys, you're getting paid a ton of money. I mean,
that's a good point, because if you play like Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't matter because you're so good. You're playing at an MVP. Even Kirk Cousins played at a high level. Carson didn't play at that kind of level, and you add that to it. That's a good point you bring up. I didn't think of that, so I give you kudos for that. Last one from me, and I want to tell everybody to read Martin at DelawareOnline.com. Follow him online at Twitter at MFrankNFL. We mentioned coaching with Doug Pederson. It looks like there were 9 openings, Martin. A lot of talk early about Kevin Patullo and Brian Johnson might move on, get promotions. Looks like nobody is going to pilfer from the Eagles coaching staff. Looks like Jeffrey Lurie's not going to make Nick Sirianni fire anybody. So essentially, this whole coaching staff is going to be back now that Jonathan Gannon was out, a finalist in Houston, but he'll be back. Some people aren't thrilled with that. Year 2 of this coaching staff and the continuity, how big of an improvement do you think that's going to be?
Oh, huge. I mean, a lot of people who vilified, Jonathan Gannon, and obviously we all did, like in October when they got creamed by the Raiders, and there were like 5 quarterbacks in 7 weeks completing 80% of their passes. I mean, he's got a whole offseason to kind of like design his defense around the players that he needs for it to succeed. I mean, when he came in, he was trying to like fit the players into his system and he didn't quite have the players, but that could all change during the offseason. So you would like to think that the defense will be better because A, they have the continuity, and B, they have the continuity with Gannon, and B, they're going to have the players that he needs. I mean, whether it comes in the draft, free agency, or by trade or something like that, I mean, the defense should be better and should fit his system, and we'll find out if his system works. I mean, it's supposed to. It's one of those, amoeba type of things where you adjust to what the offense is doing, and you have players who are versatile, who can play, different roles and everything like that. So I think another year with him, understanding what kind of concepts he wants from his players and having the players to do it should make the defense better. And as far as the other guys, I mean, obviously Stoutland's the best, probably assistant coach in the whole NFL, not to mention just offensive line coach. I mean, those guys love him, and the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They got to get better on the defensive line, and I think they will. You look at all that, and I think it's great that they have the continuity. I think that should make them better. I mean, I always wonder how like guys like Andy Reid has done it, because he's lost like 3 years in a row. He lost his offensive coordinator, although now the guy he has, I mean, he's had for 5 years because nobody's hiring him for whatever reason. But a lot of those coaches lose a lot of guys. Look at the Rams.
Sean McVay, man. Yeah.
They've already lost what, 2 or 3 of their coaches?
Raheem 4. Morris, well, if you go back to it was Kevin O'Connell who's going to get introduced this year. Brandon Staley last year, Zach Taylor, and Matt LaFleur, really. So, yeah, if you want a job in this league, used to be like get on Andy Reid's staff. Now it's get on Sean McVay's staff.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll help you down the road. All right, Martin, last one for me. Will, in the next 12 days, Martin Frank get an interview with maybe the most important person who will be with the Eagles out in Indianapolis for the Combine? You got an in to Julian Laurie, perchance? You get a chance to talk about the new power break?
That's Julian in the background. That's Julian.
I don't know about that, but we'll be able to get like Howie Roseman and stuff. Howie should answer some questions. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
No, you might want to get Julian's cell phone number, since he seems to be the heir apparent, and he was down in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, so I expect him in Indianapolis for the Combine.
He'll probably be there.
I don't have his number, but I thought you might.
Elmos or something.
Martin, good stuff. We appreciate you coming on board. The dog wants to go out, so go take care of your dog. Turn the lights on. Have a good day, and we'll be buzzing you in a couple of weeks to get you back on here. Thanks,
All right, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
It is our pleasure. Martin Frank here with us on Birds 365. You haven't been able to procure Julian Laurie's cell number yet, huh, John?
Not yet. We'll see. He definitely is the heir apparent, though. Jeffrey is in motion, and that's a good thing, by the way, for Eagles fans. You don't want. I just talked about continuity on the coaching staff. The last thing you want is upheaval in ownership, but you always have to be wary, because the Eagles. I talked about the Cincinnati Bengals, Jody, shoestring budget. We always talk about the salary cap. Nobody talks about off the field. There is no salary cap.
Right.
Jerry Jones most notably would be, but the Cowboys haven't been able to win. Jeffrey Lurie, I talked about the size of the Eagles personnel department, the size of their coaching staff. He spends money to make this team, to put this team in the best position possible. That's all you can ask for out of your owner. And you always have to be wary. Even in you as a New York guy, I'll go to baseball as the comparison. With the New York Yankees, obviously they spend tons of money, but there's a big difference between George Steinbrenner and his kids and how that team is run. It was all about win no matter what. Now it's not quite like that. So you always even have to be wary in those types of situations, but it's better than the alternative when you have complete upheaval.
And you mentioned on how Jeff Lurie is willing to spend on things other than players because there is no cap on it. didn't the Eagles lose a couple key executives during this offseason? I haven't heard any rumors about who might be coming in to replace those individuals.
They will replace them.
Well, that's what I'll ask John. I'll ask Johnny Mac just that when we come back. We are the Mac and Mac guys, Birds 365. Glad to be back with you guys. We'll be running straight through till whenever going forward. And we'll also be running up Derek Gunn, D Gunn, one of our buddies from the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, is going to join us a little later in the show. When we come back, I'll beat my Mike Mayock drum again. We'll see if we get any response to that here on Birds 365.
Go for the mid.